Hi, what a pleasure it is to spend some time with you this evening. Most of us, about this time of year, are thinking about things we can do to have a better year, looking forward to perhaps a new beginning. And in the things that I've practiced in the past many years as a health practitioner, integrative health, I feel that there are four main areas that we should consider to improve who we are, to perhaps even extend the healthy, happier, and more productive years of our life. And actually, I feel that I can tell you that because basically I've done that. Nobody in my family has lived as long as I have, so I feel that some of the things that I've been able to do through the years have helped me to become more productive in later years. And I'm just really looking forward to sharing those things with you. I would like to start by just kind of giving you an overview of the things that I'd like to share with you. And we have plenty in each of those categories to talk about. For example, we can improve the productive years of our life with four basic concepts. And they are the food we eat, the water we drink, the air we breathe, and the thoughts we think. That might sound a little silly sometimes, but you'll get to see what I mean, especially when it comes to the thoughts we think. You would be surprised to find out how even thinking things can have an effect on your body that can be either for the positive or for the negative. So I'd like to share a lot of that with you too. I'm really looking forward to our future together with doing everything we can in all of those areas to live a longer, healthier, happier, and more productive life. So why don't we just start out with what I'd like to call some points for the new beginning. For example, we do have the power of choice. We can't just allow whatever happens around us affect us in a way that will bring us down. It can have a negative effect on us. And one of the most powerful realizations is that with that power, we can choose our actions, we can choose what we think about, and what I mean is positive or negative. We can also change our moods with those positive and negative thoughts. It is true we can't always control the things that happen to us. We also can't control the things that other people say to us. We can control how we handle what happens to us, or how we view the things that people say to us, or for that matter, how we respond to those things, be they positive or negative. So what I'm trying to say is we need to take responsibility for our emotions. I know sometimes that sounds a little tricky, but sometimes we could be, and there's so many emotions. We could be feeling hurt, excuse me, angry, depressed. Oftentimes we feel the way we do because of the choices we make, not necessarily what somebody else has said or done. So we have to think about it in that way. So let's start working on consciously deciding to change our feelings no matter what happens to us, no matter what our environment is. We need to be thinking about our attitudes, how these thoughts are going to affect us. And I'm very excited to be able to share with you how different thoughts, words, emotions, attitudes, and feelings do have an effect on the body, actually on every single organ and cell in the body. I'm really looking forward to sharing a lot of that information with you. I've done a lot of research to be able to get that to you and have worked in that category and in that environment for a lot of years. I totally enjoy it. I'm sure you're going to like it too. So let's talk about the perspective, for example, of life events. Accepting, for example, what is. That's what allows us to shift our attitude. And in spite of everything that goes on, believe it or not, you can find joy in everything around you. Don't you find it interesting that maybe something as simple as just taking a walk in the park, or if you don't have a park, look at the sky, look at the trees. When we have flowers, look at the flowers. There's so many things we can do, even when things are not good around us, to find joy, to find happiness, to find something to put a smile on our face. That too has a huge influence on the cellular activity in your body. I know that may sound ridiculous, but it's so true, and there's been enough research on that to prove that that's a huge factor in how we feel. So when I talk about the thoughts you think, it's also the things we say. So what I'm trying to get at is we personally need to take ownership of life circumstances. Yes, it's true that we can't control all the things that are going on around us. I know most of us would think when we watch the news, if we could change or control the things that are going on around us, a lot of the things that we see happening would not be happening, right? We can't choose that, but what we can choose is how we view things, how we communicate about it. And on that note, probably a good idea if we don't spend a lot of time looking at things that are stressful, that are negative, or that may even be painful for us to watch. I will also add along those lines that when I reference that we do have choices about the things we do to help us to feel better, or it could cause us to feel worse, I'm talking about the simple things of life, the food we eat, for example. Do we try to eat better foods? I'm so happy to see that a lot's being done to make sure that the foods that we eat are healthier than some of the things we've had before. Even things like choices that we make relative to the medications or other types of drugs, whether it's even overconsumption of alcohol, smoking cigarettes, anything that can have a negative effect on us. We have those choices. That's up to us, and nobody else can do that for us. That's something that we have to do. So the other thing that we need to work on is looking at our motivation. It's so interesting. Something as simple as saying, wow, I'm going to have an ice cream cone. It's going to just make me feel good. Well, that's what makes you feel good. Fine. But let's look at self-compassion and growth in these areas. You see, a lot of the choices that we make doesn't mean they're wrong choices. What we need to look at is let's use what happens with those choices as an opportunity to make better decisions in the future. If I eat something that just makes me feel horrible, wouldn't it be best for me then to not eat that one again, or find out why it makes me feel horrible? And something else might make you feel great, I don't feel good, and vice versa. So they're where we have to look at our own, compare with ourselves, not with what everybody else is doing, for our better growth. So this is where our empowerment comes in. We don't want to be always considering ourselves a victim of everything else that's going on, and that way everybody would be a victim. But remembering again that we do have choices, and the choices that we make can help us to not feel like we're a victim. So let's just start with putting things like that into practical application. I would like to, in the future, perhaps not this time, but share a lot of thoughts with you and show you where certain emotions have been proven to have a negative or positive effect on certain glands, organs, and parts of the body. Perhaps some of the things you're dealing with when you're not feeling well may be due to some of the thoughts we're thinking, or our attitudes, our conversations, and we do have choices. So there's been a saying, it's not so much what happens to you, it's more about how you handle or how you take what happens to you. Again, we have choices. So let's think about, along those lines, changing our perspective and just trying to make better choices. It's going to give us become a better person. I found something that I want to share with you that I couldn't find who wrote this, but I thought it was so beneficial as to this whole concept that we're talking about. Because, that everything that happens goes in through the brain, through the central nervous system to get to the body and every cell. And this is entitled, The Wonders of the Brain and Belief. I want to share this with you, and I think you'll agree with where this is taking us. The greatest force in the human body is the natural drive of the body to heal itself. But that force is not independent of the belief system, which can translate expectations into physiological change. Nothing is more wondrous about the billions of neurons in the human brain than their ability to convert thoughts, hopes, ideas, and attitudes into chemical substances. Everything begins, therefore, with belief. What we believe is the most powerful option of all. That's sort of what I was trying to get at in my earlier discussion. And as I mentioned, there's proof that what we believe, how we handle those beliefs, will have an effect on every part of the body, whether it's positive or negative. The point is, we have choice. So if this is our new beginning, and we're looking to the future to be that future, as I mentioned, more productive, happier, healthier, live a longer, better life, and share that with our families because we want them with us, don't we? So let's take all of these things into mind. So the mind and the brain is so powerful when it comes to, as I mentioned earlier, the thoughts we think. And I like to add the words we say. I'd like to just give a little scenario and see if you can think of a situation where this may have happened to you. We're all sitting around, everybody's happy and everybody's laughing and they're telling funny stories and personal stories and nice stories. And somebody enters into the little group. And have you ever noticed a time when that would happen? And all of a sudden it was like it got dark. Everything felt heavier. Everything just seemed to change in its perspective. I said this to somebody at a meeting recently, and she said, "Boy, is that ever true." She said, "I have a friend that all of us could be sitting around talking, and when she walks in, everything changes." So you probably have had that experience yourself, and you know what I'm talking about. I thought it was interesting, something that I was reading, and I actually saw a show about this on a newscast on TV, talking about how what we think can change how we feel. It's so interesting because the point is that it doesn't mean that we're already down, we're already suffering with an illness, we're already suffering with some type of potential disease. And they were discussing people with multiple personalities. The point that was made was that in one personality, they were talking about this young girl, was extremely allergic to cats. So the point is, that was in her brain. That was brain activity, right? It's what her brain is sharing with her body. Because in another personality, she loved cats. She would be petting them and totally enjoyed being with cats. Another person had to wear glasses to read. Well, that's a good one. And then in another personality, same person, but didn't need glasses to read, could see perfectly. So the point that I'm trying to make is the power of the mind relative to the health of our bodies. So if we can work on improving how we think and how we even communicate with ourselves. I have a list of things that I'd like to share with you that I think are pretty good examples of things that we say. I always like to look at how we say things and then how could we have said it in a more positive way. But many of us grow up hearing things like, you'll never amount to anything, or you can't. I always said, success comes in cans. You can't and you can. So it's which can you're using. Have you heard somebody, which would be a pretty sad thing if a parent said this to their child, you'll never amount to anything. That has an interesting effect on the brain that took that in. So until the day that the person realizes they have choices about their thoughts and they have the right to not feel the way they were just told they are, we do have choices. How about this one? You don't have a chance, or you're all wrong. All wrong? That's a pretty tough one. Here's one. It's just no use. Just forget it. But somebody else could come along and whatever that situation was, and become a genius at it. Here's one I'm sure you hear all the time. And this is one that probably we feel like that when we watch the news a lot. And it is, the world's going to the dogs. Or, what's the use? Nobody cares. There's no point in trying so hard. Oh, I love this one. You're just getting too old now. Don't even bother. Really? I've often said, even at this older age, retirement isn't a process in my brain, but then, we all have those choices. And maybe you look at it another way. Here's one. You just can't win. Really? How about reevaluating that and looking at how you can win? So I'm just talking, this is what I'm talking about. The way we talk generally tends to be very negative, or maybe not. I shouldn't say we as everybody doing that, because I know many of you are incredibly positive in how you think and how you share your thoughts with other people to give them the happiness that you enjoy from being positive. Let's talk about a side view of what we're talking about, how people handle different things. And here's one that I've tried to share with a lot of people that I communicate, my patients and my students. When somebody is really down, and people have a lot of reasons to feel depressed, there's a lot of reasons for stress, and all of those factors do have an influence on our health. And it's up to us to decide how we're going to view those things. Not just that, how much energy do we put in thinking about the things that are not good that's going on around us? So here's my point. We'll often see others around us, or just somebody that you just happen to meet. I just met someone in a store recently who was talking about how horrible things were. In our part, let's try to be supportive. Sometimes all somebody else needs is just to have a nice, happy, positive listening ear. No matter what you're thinking about it, at least just listen. Try to be comforting. I remember I had a friend that every time she would visit a sick relative, it was a conversation like this. hey, you need to do this and you need to do that. You need to sit there. You need to cook this. You need to take a walk here, so on and so forth. Then I would get the call later. The patient was crying because she felt abused with the guests saying, you need to do all of these things that virtually were next to impossible for her to do. What if instead, in telling somebody what they need to do, what if we say, do you need something that I can do for you? Can I help you in any way? Can I get something for you? Or if you see somebody trying to do something that's difficult for them, can I help you? How can I help you? So, point that I'm making, let's look at how we can turn negative situations around into a positive situation and ask them what we can do for them. People do and are suffering in a lot of ways today. And I'm going to be talking about those in future events here. I want to talk about certain conditions that we have. One of my favorites to talk about is things that you can expect to have happen to you as you grow older. But what are some things that we can do to maybe prevent them from or reduce the risk of those things happening and try to help not only ourselves but those around us to feel better, live a happier, healthier, more productive life, and be able to share that with others. Have you ever noticed that when you do something really nice for somebody else, you probably feel better than they do? So that kindness, that positive attitude that I'm talking about, that has a huge effect on your health, is also helping that person feel better. So I hope that in our next discussion, I want to get into some very specifics about certain attitudes. I want to talk about what anger will do to a person. I want to talk about how depression affects you. All of us are dealing with stress. You're just not going to go through life without dealing with stress. But let me just say one thing about stress. All stress isn't bad. Do you know it's stress that sometimes forces us to become more active and spend our time better to accomplish something that we would like to have or do? That's stress, but it's not negative. It makes you a better person. And it goes in that way, that too helps you to have a happier, healthier, more productive life. And I believe living longer as well. So I want to talk about those different stressors. I want to talk about those different attitudes, the different things that we think and talk about, and show you which part of the body they affect, and then how we can prevent those from being negative, and how we can in turn help those to be positive. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.